Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com as I fool with my mic. This is Dave Kanyuk coming at you live here on webcast1live.com. Tonight, I am joined by the founding father of Frankly Speaking Live, Mr. Frank. Is it Holtzhauser or is it Tom? Are you back? Are you at Thomas now? Frank the Truth Thomas is.
Verse.
Frank the Verse. Okay, Verse Truth. You're going to have to get me a scorecard. I can't keep it all straight.
This is true.
Yeah. So, Frank, it's been a little while since we've talked last. How are things going?
Oh, not too bad. Been actually learning a new trick. 58-year-old dog learning a new trick. I've been actually doing Maddie's job.
What?
Yeah, I've been producing shows and actually soloed a couple of shows. Being the perfectionist I am, I get overcritical when I make a mistake, but like Max said, I don't do perfect shows, so I don't.
Well, maybe someday soon, maybe Mark Levin will be referring to you as Mr. Producer Man.
I don't know.
Mr. Producer Man, Frank.
Get in here and
who's the next call?
Straighten things up.
Yeah. Maddie, are those levels a little bit, I feel like I'm getting a lot of feedback on that, on my voice. All right, that's a little bit better. If you want to get some feedback or provide some feedback to our voices, give us a call here. The number here is 244-0077. If you're outside of Des Moines, add 515-515-244-0077. So I want to try and move quickly. I've got a huge stack of stuff here.
I've never known you to be without a stack.
I didn't know you were going to be here. I was actually prepping to do this all by myself tonight, so it's kind of nice to have.
I was actually sitting in here just messing around on Facebook and cleaning out some email boxes, and I was kind of shocked to see you two walk in the door because
you never know.
Maddie is putting her husband up to something that's out of his comfort zone.
That's right. Congratulations, Maddie, on the birth of your child there. Good. Yeah, she says thank you. So
thank you.
Let's jump right on into it. I guess the big news. Just breaking yesterday, the round one of the Republican circus known as the debate occurred last night on FA News. I didn't have a chance to watch the debates. I saw some highlights on it. The first thing that I really noticed, clearly Fox had it out for Donald Trump right from the get-go, making him try to pass a loyalty test from the beginning. Can all of you pledge that you're not going to run as a third-party candidate if you don't get the nomination? Well, no. If you're running for a party and the party doesn't like you and they do everything that they can to sabotage you, why should you pledge to support that candidate that you don't support?
Well,
you shouldn't. If you got the means, run for a third party.
I think Trump is just looking to get treated fairly.
Right. He's looking to get treated fairly, and I saw all throughout the election cycle last year how they didn't treat Ron Paul fairly whatsoever. And quite frankly, Ron Paul, after they stole Iowa from him, he should have run as a third party. But he may not have had the means that Donald Trump does. And that's what the Republican Party is really worried about, if Donald Trump is for real. And that's really the question. Is Donald Trump genuine? He's certainly striking a chord with the Republican base. Or is he, like so many people are contending, is he a ringer for Hillary?
I'm not sure he really wants it, to be truthful. I think he's trying to push an agenda.
What agenda, though?
Well, I think he's got a good populist agenda, infrastructure, jobs, trade, and immigration. And I think that's kind of a thing that's hitting a nerve with a lot of voters.
Yeah.
Particularly conservatives like myself, who's a little teed off that we keep sending people to Washington to do the things that we want them to do, and they keep finding ways not to do it.
You mean like John Boehner and Mitch McConnell? You're not happy with the esteemed leadership of John Boehner and Mitch McConnell?
Well, as a Republican voter, I understand that we own a third of a branch, but there's no reason that as Republicans we shouldn't be sending a bill a day. A stack of bills a day for Obama to veto and at least show who's being the obstructionist instead of constantly being accused of being the obstructionist.
Well, the problem is when you've got a bill that goes before the floor, like this defund Planned Parenthood bill, people like Mitch McConnell try to pull the rug out, try to put the screws to it. And Mitch McConnell actually voted with all the Democrats in order to keep Planned Parenthood butchery factories funded.
Well, that's exactly my issue. Is we sent them there to be a stopgap measure, stopgap for Obama and what Obama's agenda is, and they've dropped the ball.
I don't think they've dropped the ball. I don't think they ever had the ball to begin with.
Well, they ought to, like I say, they ought to send a bill a day for him to veto.
Well, what I hope happens is that this movement to oust Boehner goes through, and that he's taken out from the leadership.
Well,
I hope about that.
If he doesn't do what he needs to be doing, I have no problem with him being cantored.
But well, let's get back. Yeah, exactly. Let's get back over to Donald Trump. So many people are raising this issue. Is Donald Trump a ringer? Is he, since he's supported Hillary in the past, since he's donated, and he kind of answered about those donations to the Clinton Foundation last night, saying, "Hey, I thought they were doing good work. I didn't know that she was spending the money on a private jet. I wanted her to come to my wedding. Yada yada yada." I guess what is it that Trump has to do to prove that he is for real, that he's not a ringer for the Democrats, as so many have contended?
Because you play the system, because the system is legal, is that wrong? I mean, in other words, I made the point on my Facebook this afternoon that if Trump was a Democrat and was punching George W. Bush upside the chops, the media wouldn't make an issue if he had been bankrupt 50 times. But because he's smacking Hillary around and smacking Barry around, he's been bankrupt 4 times. Well, Trump said, "I just played the system."
Right, and then Fox, they don't say anything about Carly Fiorina, who ran Hewlett Packard into the ground. She was basically fired from her job there. But yeah, they'll launch into Donald Trump.
But Trump's pointing out the straws in the system, or the emperor doesn't have any clothes on. In essence, he's letting the beans out of the bag. This is how politicians are bought. You donate to their campaigns, and then when you call them on the phone, they're beholding to answer you.
So I guess what is to prevent the same thing happening during a Trump presidency? If he gets big donors, and they call favors in on him.
Well, the only thing I would say is, I mean, you're not a student of NASCAR, but in NASCAR had so much cheating going on at one point that they had to go out and hire the cheat to police the cheats. So Donald Trump could be filling that in some strange way, is he's letting the secrets out of the bag, how politicians are bought and sold. And hey, if you want somebody in there to police it, I'm the guy to police it, because I'm one of the type of people that has been guilty of this.
Sure.
And readily admits he's been guilty. But he says, don't feel no sympathy for them bankers, because them bankers ain't choir boys.
Right.
Those guys are cut-through businessmen that maybe I went belly up on and they lost money.
Yeah.
But he's saying, hey, don't feel sorry for them.
And that's part of what's so refreshing about the rhetoric that is coming out from Donald Trump, is that, yes, he is talking about holding people accountable. Think about, everything that happened in 2008. No bankers or anything got arrested for all the fraud, all the derivative scams and everything that brought the economy to its knees and almost brought us under economic martial law in 2008. Nobody's gone to jail for that. John Corzine steals $1 million from... I can't remember what the company was.
Some ag industry thing here.
I don't think it was an ag industry, but anyway, he steals $1 million from MF.
Billion. I think it was $1 billion.
It was ridiculous amount. Far more than you or I make in a year. But yeah, so he steals all this money. Nobody's brought to task or anything. So I think that's part of what. I think that's part of the appeal of Donald Trump. And again, it just gets back to that matter of, is this all for show, or is he really...
Well, he's obviously pointing out the emperor doesn't have any clothes on, but now whether he is for real, I kind of always thought that when it come to money disclosures, Trump's ego would never want people to know that he's either as rich as he is or not as rich as he is. But he did do some disclosure in advance of this, but I'm hearing that there's some date where there's another disclosure, and whether he wants to let that information out. I don't know. But I tend to think for some reason he's in it for real this time. For some reason. I don't know why. Now, if you put me under truth serum that does he really want to be president, I would have to say no. But I think he's definitely trying to run the agenda.
Yeah, and that's still refreshing.
Because he's a businessman, and obviously if the country goes down, the businessmen aren't going to make much money.
Right.
So I think he's looking at this country from a business aspect that if we don't get our act together, China is going to eat our lunch.
Well, China already owns the lunch, and they're withholding the mustard. He came out, he blasted Megyn Kelly, calling her a bimbo last night because of a question about how he's referred to women in the past. Let's see here.
I didn't hear the bimbo remark.
Trump, let's see here. Trump on, he said bimbo. Well, he tweeted this out. This out. Let's see.
Well, you didn't watch the debate, right?
I saw highlights of it, but I did not watch it live.
Well, as someone who watched it live, I think the Kelly thing was tongue-in-cheek. He first off...
Well, she was really ticked. I saw the highlights of that.
Well, yeah, but she made a comment. Well, you said some disparaging thing about women. And immediately he said, oh, yeah, well, Donald Trump. Well, you remember seeing the Trump Rosie O'Donnell bit on WWE Wrestling, right?
Right.
They had a couple of impersonators come in and set up a wrestling match between Rosie and Donald Trump. Well, obviously, there's been a past between Trump and Rosie. And... Megan started pushing him a little harder, and he said, well, you better watch out. Maybe I'll come after you or something. But you could tell he had a cat who ate the canary grin on his face. He was being tongue-in-cheek. Mm-hmm. And it's gotten blown out of proportion. I was telling my sister last night, see if it takes over 30 seconds for Debbie Wasserman Schultz or Bill Burton to turn it into a misogyny, a war on women. And that's exactly what they done, is they tried to turn it into
Kelly turned it into she's the one that mentioned war on women in her question to Trump.
Here's the whole thing. It was set up last night trying to get Trump to say what Trump normally does, something outrageous, and then see how long it would take the other participants on stage to attack him. It was all set up for that because it's like cutthroat pitch.
Exactly.
They're trying to see who will jump up and be man enough to cut Donald Trump's throat.
Right.
But the only problem is Trump will punch you back.
Why is Fox News in the business of trying to get people to come up and jump?
Ratings.
Ratings, yeah. Well, but still, it sounds like Fox News is trying to pick winners.
I didn't come away with it that way. I just feel like they're in it for ratings, and they're trying they're trying to see who will jump up and take a swipe at Trump.
I've watched dirty shenanigans from Fox News for years and years and years. The other takeaway, The Atlantic had a great piece on the Rand Paul, Chris Christie exchange from last night. That I did see. This is by Conrad Friedersdorf. One of the biggest clashes in the Republican debate Thursday night came after New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was asked about his past attacks on Senator Rand Paul. The two men disagree about the illegal NSA, that's my commentary, the illegal NSA spying program that collected tens of millions of innocent Americans' phone records, phone calls and everything that they dialed and received. Paul, leading critic of the phone dragnet, has argued that it flagrantly violates the Fourth Amendment, which it does, to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. Christie said in the past that if America is hit by another terrorist attack, Paul should be called before Congress to answer for his efforts to constrain the NSA's illegal domestic spying. Christie stood by his attack last night. So he was asked, do you really believe that you can assign blame to Senator Paul for opposing the bulk collection of people's phone records in the event of a terrorist attack? The ensuing exchange highlighted the stark differences in how the rival candidates would govern their respective understandings of the Constitution. Christie, in between cheeseburgers on stage, stood by his attack. Yes, I do, he said, and I'll tell you why. Because I am the only person on this stage who's actually filed applications under the Patriot Act, who has gone before the FISA court, who has prosecuted, investigated, and jailed terrorists in this country after September 11th. I was appointed by U.S. President Bush on September 10th, 2001. He was appointed U.S. Attorney by President Bush on September 10th, 2001. And the world changed enormously the next day. That what happened in my state, this is not theoretical to me. I went to the funerals. We lost friends of ours in the Trade Center that day. My own wife was 2 blocks away at her office, having gone through it that morning. So you see what he's doing right there. He's trying to evoke an emotional response from the viewer, trying to invoke those images of the burning towers and everything to make you...
Well, you and I have had this discussion pretty much in the early stages of our show, in the beginnings of our shows. And I've kind of advocated for a somewhat moderate position on it. You tend to be more on the side of ultra liberty. I tend to be more,
No, I am on the side of the law of the land, which is the Constitution. And that's not an extremist view. An extremist view is to go against the Bill of Rights that are laid out in the Constitution.
But clearly
and completely against the spirit of everything on which this country was founded.
Clearly,
that's an extremist usurping view.
But clearly we have to keep tabs on potential enemies.
Yes, it's called a warrant, as Rand Paul outlined.
Well, sometimes you got to go fishing to find out what your enemies are up to, don't you think?
No, you don't. You don't collect everybody's
So you
data.
want to get caught absolutely flat-footed.
I would rather die in liberty than live under tyranny, Frank.
Well,
and if you don't like, if you would rather live in tyranny, if you would rather have an oligarchy listening in on everything and watching under every rock and everything that you do, then there's great countries called North Korea that you can go live under. I mean,
well, I hear your point of view.
China,
I hear your point of view, but
Soviet Russia back in the day.
I think that's
East Germany.
I think that's a little.
Marcus Wolf from East Germany was actually brought in to set up the Department of Homeland Security.
I'm not saying that there can't be abuse in the system, but we cannot be caught flat-footed and not know what our enemies are up to.
That is a good point. We can there can be abuse in the system. That's why the Constitution was erected, because the founding fathers understood that mankind cannot always be inherently trusted. So they put these safeguards in place so that people would have a harder time abusing the people. And with that, we're coming up on our first break. We'll be, you're watching Frankly Speaking live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. Frank Holzhauser sitting to my left. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. We'll get back to this in just a moment.
You got a phone call coming in.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
All right, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. Riding along with us, Frank, the Verse, Frank the Verse. We're talking about the exchange between Rand Paul and Chris Christie that occurred at the Republican three-ring circus debates last night. Frank is getting a headset. We've got a caller. We're going to go to you in just a second here. Where we last left off was Christie trying to invoke an emotional reaction in the audience by talking about how he went to the funerals, et cetera, et cetera. The author of this Atlantic piece goes on to basically state what I had just stated. A GOP debate stage hasn't witnessed such naked exploitation of the emotions surrounding 9/11 since Rudy Giuliani used the same manipulative tactic in 2008. Then, as now, there are plenty of people who stood every bit as close to the Twin Towers as they fell and drew opposite conclusions about how to fight the war on terror. Invoking physical proximity to the attacks is an irrational appeal made to avoid the need for a more substantive analysis. Christie went on to talk about how he was in 7 years in office and he needs to respect civil liberties while protecting the homeland, which, by the way, I hate the term homeland. That's nothing more than a holdover of Nazi rhetoric. They used to call it the Reichstag, which was the homeland. It's the United States, not the homeland. Call it the United States. And I will make no apologies ever for protecting the lives and safety of the American people. He said, we have to give more tools to our folks to be able to do that, not fewer, and then trust those people and oversee them to do it right away. And that plays right in to the point that we made right before we went to break, that we can't always trust the people who are in government. That's why we have the Constitution, because mankind can be corrupted. Mankind is not infallible. And we've got Tom on the line who wants to make a comment on various aspects of this story that we were talking about. Tom, hi, you're on Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com with Dave and Frank. What's going on?
Oh, I just tuned in and I heard you talking about the Constitution in relation to 9/11 and stuff. And I just like to point out a few things that people seem to be forgetting. You know, the Constitution applies to American citizens, and according to the Constitution, you're an American citizen if you were born here and you're under the jurisdiction of this country. That doesn't mean if you sneak in from another country, you're an American citizen. It doesn't mean if your parents sneak in and you're born here that you're a citizen, because they're still under the jurisdiction of that other country because they never applied for citizenship to the United States. Now, those people who pulled off 9/11 were all here illegally. They had overstayed their visas. They were never citizens. I don't see why you think the Constitution protects listening in on people like that. And, people think Trump has got something against Hispanics because he wants to secure the border. A great percentage of the people, a growing percentage of those crossing into the U.S. over the Mexican border are from other countries, and a lot of them are countries that practice terrorism against Western interests.
So, Tom,
what are they doing in Mexico? They just got lost crossing the ocean, and now they're trying
no, I get the point, Tom. Here's what I would answer. I understand, the Constitution is not meant to cover those who, are not here legally. They're not citizens of the United States. The problem with the NSA bulk data collection is that they're collecting everybody's data, regardless of if you committed a crime or not. They're collecting your data. Well, and that is illegal under the Constitution. I should not have to worry about doing this radio show. I shouldn't have to worry about doing this radio show or talking to Frank on the phone or talking to my dad on the phone about different things. I shouldn't have to worry about that, whether or not a keyword is going to be picked up and we're going to be put on some watch list for not having done anything but political dissent. And that's really what it comes down to is this NSA bulk collection of data is less about protecting us from terrorists. If they were worried about protecting us from terrorists, then they would have closed off the border. They would actually be enforcing immigration laws and shipping these people out. They don't care about that. They care more about quelling any type of political dissent against the one world machine that they are building, against the totalitarian oligarchy which they are constructing in this country.
So,
go ahead.
Tom, I'm guessing you're not pro Anchor Baby. But while I'd asked David, and I would toss it out for you too, the theory has been tossed out there that you can't get the needle in the haystack unless you have the haystack. So chew that out between the two of you.
Yeah,
well,
sure.
Well, here's the thing. In World War II, we had no problem identifying the enemy and naming them as such. Everybody knew who we were fighting. Nowadays, we have something similar between just about every terrorist on the planet. The same gender, the same faith, yet we keep pretending, these are just extremists. We can't start looking at people who practice that faith. Well, you know what? If the faith is sponsoring so much terrorists, why don't the peaceful people of that faith clean it up? Why is it up to us to defend it and say, that's a religion of peace and all this nonsense? These are just the extremists. Well, they should be coming out and saying, look, you don't represent us, but you never hear word one from the peaceful ones. You just hear it from their defender, Mr. Obama, in the White House.
Well, Tom, generally in World War II, people put on a uniform and they didn't take it off till they was dead or they went home from war. But we got a situation where people wear a uniform, they take it off, they blend into civilian population, and you don't know who's who.
What they're practicing doing right now with Jade Helm. That's what our military is practicing doing to United States communities right now, is blending in to our communities. Let me answer your points here. As far as we've got an enemy who doesn't wear a uniform. Think about all the spies that we had in World War II and the Cold War. We had spies from all over the world, Germany, Russia, et cetera, in the United States. Knowing this, we didn't put a dragnet out on everybody's conversations. We didn't say, let's arrest everybody who's blonde hair, blue eye.
But did you think if the technology would have been available, they wouldn't have done it? I mean, Abraham Lincoln spied on people. J. Edgar Hoover said when there was 250 million people in the country, he had files on 200 million of them, was closing in fast on the others.
And that doesn't make him right.
I'm not saying it is,
but the difference is,
but you're pointing
when that was exposed in the past, we had outrage in this country. We had rightful outrage because the laws were being violated. This is clearly a violation of law. We should not live in a country where we are not secure in our persons and papers and effects. We should not have to live in a country that we have somebody looking over our shoulder for every moment, for everything that's done. And it is better. Ben Franklin had a quote that said, "It's those who would give up a little bit of liberty for a little bit of safety deserve neither." And you cannot have a free society if you're going to have the government listening in on everybody. Because you know what happens? They blackmail you. And that's exactly what's happened in cases with John Roberts. He's been blackmailed by the NSA. Probably half of Congress has been blackmailed by the NSA, which would explain these inexplicable moves that they make.
I understand that principle, Dave, and that's a good principle. But the problem of it is when you're laying under tons of rubble and you're breathing and drinking your own urine and you're breathing asbestos dust, that's an easy thing to talk about until you're buried under the rubble. And I'm just saying we can't afford any kind of attack on this country.
If I'm buried under rubble after an attack, my first thought will not be, God, I wish the government had spied on me more. My first thought will be, I hope the American people rise up and get the bastards who did this. That's what my dying wish will be. And my dying wish will not be for America to continue to turn into the gulag state that it's become. It will be for America to remain free, for those people who did this to be brought to justice, and for the American way of life to continue on stronger than it ever has been before.
Well, I think you're hoping for something that we've never had in this country.
Because we've had this imagery invoked from 9/11. This is why 9/11 was, this is why the intelligence agencies who carried out 9/11 had to do it. They had to get this shock and awe effect so that we would be willing to give up our freedom. If we didn't have 9/11, nobody who has any type of rational thought whatsoever would be talking about, oh yeah, we need spying on everybody. Oh, we need perpetual war on everything. We would not allow Lindsey Graham to stand in the Senate and say that oh, well, if the United States Congress does not pass what the president wants, then we should just have military arrest.
What do you think about that, Tom? Do you side on the side of liberty, or do you side on the side of
tyranny?
Protection of the country?
Tyranny.
I am so happy to hear, Frank, that your partner concerns himself with the Constitution, because there's people in this country who are being told they must participate in wedding ceremonies that go against their faith, and the Constitution clearly says that practicing your religion is protected.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure he's going to be a warrior against those same-sex marriage lawsuits.
And if we weren't eviscerating the Constitution on other ends, then perhaps this evisceration of the Constitution would not be so readily taking place either.
Well, right, and the people don't know the Constitution anymore. They certainly don't know the Declaration of Independence anymore.
Absolutely.
They walk around saying, well, the Constitution doesn't mention God. Well, no, but the founding document, which is the Declaration, mentions him 5 times as creator of man, creator of the universe, and all these other things. But they, I argue with people on the internet and said our government has nothing to do with religion, and I said, are you kidding? Did you read why we declared our independence? It's because we thought they were taking our rights away that God gave us, not man. Governments are supposed to protect our God-given rights. That's why governments are instituted among men, according to the Declaration of Independence, the document that made us our own separate nation.
Absolutely. And then when you start knocking down that pillar of where our rights come from, that they actually come from a creator,
right.
Then you start having to put up the pillar of, oh, well, no, rights come from government, and those rights can be revoked at our convenience.
Let me ask you this. I mean, in biblical times, you don't think the nation of Israel had spies to see what was going on in the different tribes who were seeking to attack them, from the Ammonites to the Edomites to the Amalekites? I mean, spying and seeing what your enemies has been doing is age-old, it's age-old as biblical history. So,
There's a difference between inserting spies
I'm just saying
in right situations and putting a dragnet on everybody, Frank, and that's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, but I'm telling you, had they had the technology in Abraham's Lincoln's time, they would have had a dragnet on everybody.
Well, I don't agree with a lot of the things that Abraham Lincoln did, actually.
I mean, suspension of habeas corpus. He imprisoned reporters who he considered rebel rousers, who was going up against the Civil War.
Under the Declaration of Independence, Actually, in times of emergency, the Constitution does provide for things like that. So he was acting within his rights.
And clearly, FDR had internment camps to keep Japanese people for their protection and for the protection of the people here in this country.
Right.
I mean,
and I think that was
I had a Yugoslavian girlfriend during the time that Milosevic's country was being bombed. I mean, if you see your countrymen on the nightly news being bombed, that could create some animus in your heart that you might go out and do something against some person that you think is responsible for that.
Well, you're convicting somebody before they've actually committed a crime. Anyway, we're coming up to break. Thanks very much for your call, Tom. We're going to move on here. We're going to move on to some other topics as well. You're watching Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. This is Dave Kanyuk. That's Frank Holzhauser. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, You come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
And welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. That's Frank Holtzhauser. We were talking about the debates, Rand Paul, Chris Christie. We're going to move on a little bit. The other big story this week was the 5th video that was released in regards to Planned Parenthood from the Center for Medical Progress. This shows them talking about getting an intact specimen. That's a whole dead baby cadaver and selling that off for medical research. New undercover footage shows Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains Vice President and Medical Director Dr. Savita Ginde negotiating a fetal body parts deal, agreeing multiple times to elicit pricing per body part harvested and suggesting ways to avoid legal consequences. So that would mean if you're going to avoid legal consequences, that would mean that it's illegal. Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains is a wealthy multi-state Planned Parenthood affiliate that does over 10,000 abortions per year. PPRM has a contract to supply aborted fetal tissue, that's aborted baby body parts. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Rubber
aborted baby body
bumpers.
parts. That's too gross to joke about. Contract to supply aborted baby body parts tissue to Colorado State University in Fort Collins. In the video, actors posing as representatives from a human biologics company meet with Ginde at the abortion clinic headquarters of PPRM in Denver to discuss a potential partnership to harvest dead baby organs. When the actors request intact dead baby specimens, Ginde reveals that in PPRM's abortion practice, quote, sometimes if someone delivers before we get to see them for a procedure, then we are intact, meaning they've got a whole dead baby. But think about that. If someone delivers before we get to see them, that means the baby's born alive?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Well, Kermit Gosnell in Cleveland or the clinic in Pennsylvania was inducing labor, bringing kids into the world, and then clipping their spinal column with scissors.
Yep.
So that looks like premeditated murder.
No members of the press wanted to attend that trial, but it happened nonetheless. So this is the 5th video that came out this week. Apparently, there are 9 videos total.
I thought a judge was trying to stop those videos.
Put an injunction. Center for Medical Progress said, "Screw you, screw your injunction." This is freedom of the press. We're releasing these videos anyway. Good for them.
Yeah.
Tip of the hat for Joni Ernst for supporting the push to defund Planned Parenthood. Good for her on that. So 9 total videos. Planned Parenthood has gone from changing their stance from saying, oh, this is all a hoax, to, oh, well, these are heavily edited, to this week saying, why don't you just release all of them at the same time and let's just see what you got?
Because we want to drip, 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 drip.
Oh, yeah. We're the ones torturing them.
Yeah.
We're the ones torturing them with the truth. here's the thing. If we are this morbid and shocking and horrible on video number 5 that's been released, what are we going to get to when we get to video number 9, Frank?
Well, I think they've done it this way. They've rolled these videos out to maximize the effect.
Oh, absolutely, and they should do that.
To get progressively worse, just like they do to us. Whether they progressively try to take away your Second Amendment rights or whatever, you go after it a chip at a time. And I think they're rolling this out just the way they ought to. It's getting worse and worse, and the more people are hearing it, they're getting more turned off to it. And maybe at some point, the climax will be, hey, let's stop funding this baby-killing mill.
Absolutely. But my question is, for pure speculation's sake, what do you think is going to be on video number 9 when we get to that point?
Maybe a real live
bingo
abortion.
Bingo. No, I think it's going to be worse. I think it's going to be a live delivery. The baby's born alive. You can clearly tell it's alive. And I don't know this. This is just me spitballing right here. But I think we are going to see a baby born alive and then it's killed.
Well, let me toss this out to you. I may have said this on our show before at some point, but you know the concept of what we call an anchor baby.
Sure.
In other words, somebody comes up from Mexico. If they drop the kid in the country, it has rights as an American citizen.
Right.
But yet, Barry Zurito, Obama, when he was in the Illinois Senate, voted against medical attention to a botched abortion, a kid who was breathing. So why wouldn't that kid have the same status as an anchor baby? Because he's born, he has status. But Obama refused to give it medical attention. So what I'm saying, they won't even go and they won't even follow their own logic and their own standards.
No, they sure won't. They were talking about in the video, I think this might have been video number 4. The video was entitled Intact Fetuses, Just a Matter of Line Items. Planned Parenthood of Texas Mega Center shows Melissa Farrell, Director of Research for Planned Parenthood Gulf Coast, talking about how an abortion can be performed in a specific way to ensure intact fetal cadavers. She said, so if we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, then we can make it part of the budget that any dissections are this and splitting the specimens into different shipments is this, she says, adding, I mean, it's all just a matter of line items.
But here's the key to this, and I think this is something that may get introduced into some of these upcoming videos, is the fact, are these women being told this? Are they being advised of this? Because they're trying to come across that these women are volunteering this. I'm telling you, half or more of these women don't even know what's going on.
That could be.
So they may have something where a woman has went in and being advised on an abortion, and she's not being told that these body parts are being potentially sold, as opposed to her volunteering this stuff for medical research.
How do you think the baby murder apologists, the pro-choice crowd, how do you think they're going to justify if what I'm thinking video number 9 is going to be? How are they going to justify if we do get to the point where we've got a baby that's obviously born alive and murdered on that tape? How are they going to justify it?
They'll turn it around to somehow it's a war on women. It'll be a It'll be a right-wing war on women is what they will try to turn it into and justify it.
You're absolutely right. Well, and they've tried to do that already. They even tried to do
Have you ever known anybody who is a kleptomaniac?
No.
In that they have a compulsion to steal. You can catch them with their hand in the cookie jar, the crumbs on the table, the crumbs on their fingers, the chocolate around their mouth, and they'll say, what cookie? And that's what Planned Parenthood is going to say. They're basically going to say what?
Right. It'll be sickly, I don't want to say fun, but it will be very interesting to see. And I could be wrong. Again, this is me just speculating, but if that's what it comes to, then it's going to be very interesting.
Well, you remember the guy that held the 5 girls hostage in Cleveland and supposedly punched him in the stomach repeatedly to abort a child.
Yes.
He mysteriously died. I was so looking forward to that trial and seeing, what did he murder? An unviable tissue mass?
Yeah, I did not know that he died. That's very interesting.
Yeah, he died mysteriously.
Planned Parenthood tried to claim that hackers had taken down their websites. Let's see here. Last week, they were saying that the website had been hacked by anti-abortion extremists, but it turns out that, no, they just put that up there as a false flag, so to speak, to try and scare people into thinking that they had been hacked.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me get your opinion on this quote-unquote gotcha videos. Now, you're not old enough to remember this, but in the 60s and 70s, they had 60 Minutes, and you'd have somebody go into an automobile shop and take a perfect car that had been looked over by a mechanic and just put it on film to see how many things that some garage would find wrong with that car.
Right.
Somebody would inevitably pull out a ice pick of some kind, puncture a tire, puncture a radiator hose, and they would catch them on camera, and then they with glee went in and showed them that video of, well, what do you got to say about this now? That was called gotcha videos.
Mm-hmm.
That was celebrated. That was celebrated by the media as
that was
cutting.
investigative journalism.
That was investigative journalism.
This is called
water
torture.
How is this any different from what was being done then?
Yeah, it's not. It's an expose on something that's clearly wrong. But the thing that I wanted to hit on real quick before we go to break is that this has to continue for those who are into the eugenics depopulation cult, which there are plenty of elitists who want to reduce the Earth's population down to 500 million. On July 28th, in the UK Sun columnist Katie Hopkins called for euthanasia vans because Britain had too many old people. She said that she would be super keen on euthanasia vans to eradicate the problem. Controversial Sun columnist, who only recently apologized for the language in her inflammatory piece, which she referred to migrants attempting to cross the Mediterranean as cockroaches, said it was ridiculous that animals could be put to sleep, but not people.
Well, horse spit. Let's just start aborting our 5-year-olds.
Well, bioethicists have talked about that, actually, and I thought I had that story around here that was a flashback story. But yes, bioethicists had actually proposed that they should have the right to abort a baby after it's been born. And you can Google that if you don't believe me. It's out there. Of course, Planned Parenthood was actually founded as the Eugenics Association of the United States of America by Margaret Sanger, who's celebrated by Hillary Clinton.
Who was out to abort what kind of babies?
Black babies. Black babies.
So who's the war on women and blacks being waged by?
Exactly. More blacks are aborted in New York City than are born in New York City because of Planned Parenthood. Margaret Sanger once said, "We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." I accepted an invitation to talk to the women's branch of the Ku Klux Klan. They are human weeds, reckless breeders, spawning human beings who never should have been born. This is Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, on black people. She continued to call them human beings who should never have been born at all. I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into this world, she once said. But from my view, I believe there should be no more babies. What kind of sick person would
no more babies, period?
No more babies, period. This sick person who wrote fan letters to Adolf Hitler. This is now the thing that she has founded, blossoming into full view. And then this is carried on later in our timeline. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I had this story up here. Ruth Bader Ginsburg in an interview. Here we go. In an interview with the Sunday New York Times, this was back in 2009, echoed Margaret Sanger's viewpoint. She said, "Frankly, I had thought at the time of Roe v. Wade, that Roe v. Wade was decided, there was a concern about population growth, and particularly growth in populations that we don't want to have too many of." This is Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg saying, understanding that Planned Parenthood was founded for the eradication of black people.
Well, can we get away from the notion that abortion is birth control? Birth control is preventing a pregnancy. That's birth control. Murder is when you end a pregnancy.
And I'm afraid that that's what we're going to see on video number 9 when we get to that. But with that, we're going to switch subjects in a couple of minutes. We're going to our final break. You're on Frankly Speaking Live, webcast1live.com. Stay tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
All right, welcome back. Final segment here on Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. With me is founding father of Webcast One Live, or not Webcast One Live, but Frankly Speaking.
I wished.
Frank Holtzhauser, or Frank the Verse. Since we're running out of time, I'm going to skip ahead to a few different stories. Something came across my my wire earlier this week that I thought was pretty disturbing, actually. This ties back in to the NSA talk that we were talking about earlier. In Raleigh, North Carolina, 3 North Carolina men, fearing a government takeover and martial law, stockpiled weapons, ammunition, and tactical gear while attempting to rig homemade explosives. And they were arrested by the Justice Department on Monday. The men from Gaston County near Charlotte were arrested by federal authorities on Saturday. They were arrested on Saturday. After more than a month's investigation, Walter Eugene Littoral, Christopher James Barker, and Christopher Todd Campbell are accused of stockpiling guns and ammunition, as well as attempting to manufacture pipe bombs and live grenades from military surplus dummy grenades, according to unsealed criminal complaints released Monday. The close to 60 pages of information compiled by federal authorities since July include allegations Littoral planned to make explosives out of tennis balls covered in nails and coffee cans filled with ball bearings. According to the documents, both Littoral and Campbell spoke openly about their opposition to Jade Helm 15, a series of ongoing Special Forces training missions in several southwestern states that has drawn suspicion from residents who fear it is part of a planned military takeover. In addition to ammunition for a long-range .338 caliber rifle, the authorities said Littoral purchased handheld radios, Kevlar helmets, body armor, and face masks in preparation for an armed resistance to the feared military occupation. Littoral was also planning to purchase an assault rifle along with ammunition for Barker, whose past convictions for possession of stolen goods and cocaine barred him for possessing a gun, according to the documents. The FBI began its investigation in mid-June after receiving a tip about Littoral and Barker attempting to make homemade explosives, and later began investigating Campbell based on similar information that he was attempting to reconstruct grenades. So what it boils down to is these guys have not committed a crime other than they wanted to prepare in case anything was done against them. That's what it comes down to. And yeah, one of them had a conviction for cocaine. So what? So he used an illegal drug. we've talked about the war on drugs, and I don't want to get into that. But yeah, these guys have not actually committed any crime. They didn't hurt anybody with weapons. They didn't. They weren't planning to blow anything up. They were just planning for self-defense.
Well,
so my contention is, what does it mean when the government is arresting you, is going after you for preparing to defend yourself against something that they think you're going to do? Doesn't that just justify their supposed actions?
Well, this is where I go back to the drip, drip, drip of progressivism. In other words, they want to go after our rights with reasonable requests, a drip at a time. Where is it in the Second Amendment that stops a felon from owning a gun? Where is it that you have to have a mental evaluation to own a gun?
Mm-hmm.
There's no such restriction. It says, unfettered right to own and bear arms.
Right.
There's no caveats in there about mental health,
right,
or convicted felon. So these are restrictions that we've put on. These are self-inflicted wounds we've put on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is pertaining to the abortion issue is, why don't we do the same progressive steps against them? And I think that's where these abortion videos are doing just that. So I guess I would say what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Well, let's get back on topic with this thing here. I mean, this is I don't think I've ever heard of preppers being arrested just for stockpiling self-defense items.
You remember David Koresh, Waco, Texas?
I do remember David Koresh, yes.
I mean, they had firearms, and they were preparing for a final day Armageddon Holocaust on Earth, and they committed no real crimes that I'm aware of.
And I'm against what happened to them. I think that it was a complete overstep.
I mean, they went in to protect the children because supposedly the bogus excuse that he was molesting or raping the children, and then Janet Reno ended up giving the order to burn the children up. So I don't know how they ended up protecting the children.
Right.
And that was on the authority of, obviously, Bill Clinton.
But at least there was an active crime that they could get a warrant to investigate the allegations of sexual abuse. There's nothing here. All that's here is that they were stockpiling weapons and they were building stuff that blew up in case the government came after them. And then the government did come after them, so that validates what they were preparing for, really. So I think that's a huge totalitarian move.
I would say probably the explosive devices was probably more of an issue, wouldn't you think, than the actual guns or arms they were trying to accumulate.
The explosive would probably be more of an issue, yes. But at the same time, there is no restriction.
Because obviously when you start putting nails and ball bearings or whatever you want into an explosive device, you're not just out to scare somebody. You're out.
No, they were building grenades in order to defend themselves in case they were attacked. They hadn't made any threats to go attack any federal buildings or anything like that. They didn't do any of that.
Sure.
All they did was say, hey, we're really worried that there's going to be a martial law takeover. That kind of signals to me that there's going to be a martial law takeover. And when you have a government that's overstepping its bounds, trampling the Constitution, why shouldn't you prepare? Why shouldn't you get yourself ready? You can't really trust the police officers anymore, for the most part. Here's a story. Woman claims sexual assault after cops perform body cavity search over marijuana. They basically raped her on the side of the road because, they smelled marijuana. There was a big story out of Chicago. Going back to the Homan Square thing that we covered months ago. Chicago police detained thousands of Black Americans at an interrogations facility. And this is from the London Guardian. And I hate that you're just putting that to Black Americans. It should just be Chicago police detained thousands of Americans in a supposedly free country at an interrogation facility. At least 3,500 Americans have been detained inside a Chicago police force warehouse described by some of its arrestees as a secretive interrogation facility, newly uncovered records reveal. Of the thousands held in the facility known as Homan Square over a decade, 82% were Black. Only 3 received documented visits from an attorney, and that goes back to what Lindsey Graham yelled about during the debate for the National Defense Authorization Act of 2008, which basically says, hey, they've got the right to pull you off the street for anything they want and deny you the right of an attorney. Oh, you want an attorney? You don't get an attorney, is what he said, quote unquote.
I understand that, but when you pick up military combatants, you certainly can't turn them back to the fight.
But this wasn't for military combatants. This isn't for military combatants. The whole point of why I'm even doing this show, ladies and gentlemen, is to warn you for what is about to happen to you, the American citizen, and everything that they're doing in the name of, fighting terrorism and everything. They don't care about terrorism. The government created the terrorists. Chris Christie invoking the images of 9/11 to try and scare you into giving up more of your rights. That itself is terrorism. He's trying to scare you into a political outcome. But that's about all the time that we have. Frank, it was good to see you, as always, again. That's Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. That's Frank, the Truth, or the Verse, Thomas. And we'll be back next week. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you later. Thank you, Maddie, for doing a stellar job in the booth, as always. That's it. We'll see you later. Have a good week.